It's Thursday, August 12th, 2021 아침 International Junior Reading Club에서 아침 독서를 시작합니다. 저는 J. Red Diamond 님이 쓴 Guns, Germs and Steel을 읽기 시작했습니다. Guns, Germs and Steel에 대해서 잠깐 소개하자면 맨 앞에 이제 이렇게 소개가 되어 있는데요. Jared Diamond is the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Guns, Germs and Steel, which was named one of Time's best nonfiction books of all time, or the number one international bestseller, collapsed and most recently the world until yesterday. A professor of geography at UCLA and noted polymath, Diamond's work has been influential in the fields of anthropology, biology, ornithology, ecology, and history, among others. 일단 퓰리처 수상작이라고 소개되고 있고요. 이분이 UCLA 지오그래피는 지리학과 교수인데 그 다이아몬드 님의 작품은 인류학, 생물학, 그다음에 에콜로지 생태학, 그리고 역사, 그리고 다른 분야까지 영향을 주고 있고, ornithology 제가 뭔지 한번 찾아봤는데 못 찾아봤네요. 예, 제가 영원서 읽는 방법은 모르는 거 나오면 그냥 건너뛰는 거예요. 이거 찾다가 보면 시간이 너무 지체되고 이렇게 재미가 없어져서 그냥 어쨌든 어느 한 분야겠죠. 나중에 한번 찾아볼게요. 그리고 제레드 다이먼드 빈티지라고 했지? 그리고 컨텐츠는 오늘 프리페이스 부분 Why is world history like an onion? 왜 세계 역사는 양파 같을까? 어제 프리페이스 부분 읽었기 때문에 오늘 프롤로그 부분 읽어보겠습니다. 프롤로그는 Yale's question, the regionally differing courses of history. 프롤로그 regionally different는 이제 지역적으로 다른 역사의 지역적으로 다른 코스들이라는 부제가 붙었는데 왜 그럴까요? We all know that history has proceeded very differently for people from different parts of the globe. 오늘은 해석도 안 하고 한번 그냥 읽어보고 싶어요. 그래서 해석 안 하고 읽었을 때 어떤 데서 제가 이렇게 그냥 이해가 되느냐 한번 보겠습니다. In the 13,000 years since the end of the last ice age, some parts of the world developed literate industrial society with metal tools. Other parts developed only non-literate farming societies, and still others retained societies of hunter-gatherers with stone tools. Those historical inequalities have cast long shadows on the modern world because the literate society, as with metal tools, has conquered on exterminated other societies. While those differences constitute the most basic fact of world history, the reasons of them remain uncertain and controversial. The puzzling question of their origins was posed to me 25 years ago in a simple personal form. In July 1972, I was walking along the beach on the tropical island of Eugenia, whereas as a biologist, I study bird evolution. I had already heard about a remarkable local politician named Yale, who was touring the district then. By chance, Yale and I were walking in the same direction on that day, and he overtook me. We worked together for an hour, talking during the whole time. Yeli radiated charisma, charisma and energy. His eyes flashed in a mesmerizing way. He talked confidently about himself, but he also asked lots of pro, pro probing questions and listened intently. Our conversation began with a subject then on every New Guinea's mind, the rapid pace of political development. Uh, Papua New Guinea, as Yali's nation is now called, was the time still administered by Australia as a mandate of United Nations. But independence was in the air. Yali explained to me his role in getting local people to prepare for government. After a while, Yali turned the conversation and began to quiz me. He had never been outside New Guinea and had not been educated beyond high school, but his curiosity was insatiable. First, he wanted to know about my work on New Guinea birds, including how much I got paid for it. Explained to him how different groups of birds had colonized New Guinea over the course of millions of years. He then asked how the ancestors of his own people had reached New Guinea over the last tens of thousands of years, and how white Europeans had colonized New Guinea within the last 200 years. The conversation remained friendly, even though the tension between two societies that Yeli and I represented was familiar to both of us. 2 centuries ago, all New Guineans were still living in the Stone Age. That is, they still used the stone tools similar to those uh, superseded in Europe by metal tools thousands of years ago, and they dwelt in villages not organized under any centralized political authority. Whites had arrived, imposed centralized government, and brought material goods whose value New Guineans industry recognized, ranging from steel axes, matches, and medicines to clothing, soft drinks, and umbrellas. In New Guinea, all those goods were referred to collectively as cargo. Many of the white colonists openly despised the New Guineans as primitive. Even the least able of New Guinea's white master, as they were still called in 1970, enjoyed a far higher standard of living than New Guineans, higher even than charismatic politicians like Yali. Yet Yali had quizzed lots of whites as he was then quizzing me, and had quizzed lots of New Guineans. He and I both knew perfectly well that New Guineans are the average at least as smart as Europeans. All those things must have been on Yali's mind when, which yet another penetrating glance of his flashing eyes, he asked me, "Why is that you white people developed so much cargo and brought it to New Guinea? And we black people, but we black people had a little cargo of our own." It was a simple question that went to the heart of life of Yali experienced it. experienced it. Yet there still is a huge difference between the lifestyle of average New Guineans and that of, of the average European or American. Comparable differences separate of the lifestyles of the other people of the world as well. Those huge disparities must have potent causes one might think would be obvious. Yet Yali's apparently simple question is difficult one to answer. Didn't have I didn't have an answer then. A professional historian still disagree about the solution. More are no longer even asking the question. In the years since Yale and I had that conversation, I had studied and written about other aspects of human evolution, history, and language. This book, written 20 years later, attempts to answer Yale. Although Yale's question concerned only the contrasting lifestyles of New Guineans and of European whites, it can be extended to a larger set of contrast within the modern world. Because of Eurasian origin, especially those still living in Europe and Eastern Asia, plus those transplanted to North America, dominate in modern world in wealth and power. Other peoples, including most of Africans, has thrown off European colonial domination, but remain far behind the wealth and power. Still, other peoples, such as the uh, original inhabitants of Australia, the Americas, and the southernmost Africa, are no longer even masters of their own lands, but have been uh, uh, decimated, sub, subjugated, and in some cases even ex, exter, exterminated by European colonists. Exterminated. Thus, questions about the inequality in the modern world can be reformulated as follows: Why did wealth and why did wealth and power become distributed as they now are, rather than in some other way? For instance, why weren't Native Americans, Africans, and original Australian the ones who decimated, subjugated, and extreme, exterminated Europeans as Asians? We can easily push this question back one step, as of the year AD 1500, when Europe's worldwide colonial expansion was just beginning. Peoples on different continents already differed greatly in technology and political organization. Much of Europe, Asia, and North Africa was the site of metal equipped states or empires. One of them on the threshold industrialization. Two Native American people, as Aztec and Incas, ruled over empires with stone tools. Parts of Saharan Africa were divided among small states of chiefdom with iron tools. 그 chiefdom 뭐지? Most of the people, including all those of Australia and New Guinea, many Pacific islands, much of the Americas, and small parts of sub-Saharan Africa lived as farming tribes, or even still as a hunter-gatherer bands using stone tools. Of course, those technological and political differences of AD 1500 were immediate causes of modern world's inequalities. Empires with steel weapons were able to conquer or exterminate tribes with weapons of stone and wood. How though did the world get to be the way it was in AD 1500? Once again, we can easily push this question back one step further by drawing on written histories and archaeological discoveries. Until the end of the last ice age, around 11,000 BC, all people on all continents were still hunters gatherers. Different rates of development on different continents from 11,000 BC to AD 1500s were what led to the technological and political inequalities of AD 1500. While Aboriginal Australians and many Native Americans remained hunter-gatherers. Most of Eurasia and much of the Americas and sub-Saharan Africa gradually developed agriculture, herding, metallurgy, and complex political organization. Parts of Eurasia and one area of Americas independently developed writing as well. However, each of these new developments appeared earlier in Eurasia than elsewhere. For instance, the mass production of bronze tools, which was just beginning in the South American Andes in the centuries before AD 1500, was already established in the parts of Eurasia over 4,000 years earlier. The stone technology of the Tasmanian were first encountered by European explorer in AD 1642, was simpler than that prevalent in parts of upper Paleolithic Europe tens of thousands of years earlier. Thus, we can finally rephrase the question about the modern world's inequalities as follows: the why human developed to proceed at such different rates on different continents. Those disparate rates constitute history's broadcast pattern and my book's subject. While this book is thus ultimately about history and prehistory, its subject is not of just academic interest but also of overwhelming practical and political importance. The history of interactions among disparate people is what shaped and modern world through conquest, epidemics, and genocide. Mm. Those collisions created reverberations that have still not died down after many centuries and that are actively continuing in some of the world's most troubled areas today. For example, much of Africa is still struggling with its legacies from recent colonialism. 그쵸. In other regions, including much of Central America, Mexico, Peru, New Caledonia, and former Soviet Union and parts of Indonesia, civil unrest or guerrilla warfare still numerous indigenous populations against government dominated by descendants of invading conquerors. Many other indigenous populations such as Native Hawaiians, Aboriginal Australians, Native Siberians, and Indians in the United States, Canada, Brazil, and Argentina, and Chile, because so reduced in numbers by genocide and disease that they are now greatly outnumbered by the descendants of invaders. Although thus indicable of mounting of a civil war, they are nevertheless increasingly asserting their rights. In addition to these current political and economic liberation, I don't know what is this, of past collisions among people, there are current linguistic liberations, especially the impending disappearance of most of modern world's 6,000 surviving languages becoming replaced by English, Chinese, Russian, and a few other languages whose numbers of speakers have increased enormously in recent centuries. All these problems of the modern world result from the different historical trajectory implicit in Yali's question. 몇 분이죠? 시간이 다 됐네. 더 읽으면 시간이 초과될 것 같아서 저는 오늘 여기까지만 읽겠습니다.